Okay, we're back from getting the tape.
What I was going to segue off of what Commissioner Meismer was asking about, the 9.4% increase in electricity, the return on investments, is I would like to know, there's got to be I'd like to know that instead of funding it at 100%, is there a better use, an efficient use of the money? Like I was talking to Mr. Whitkey, is if we fund a certain amount and then because of the savings of that, it pays forward for the next investment. I'd rather look at it that way than just plumping it all down in 100% in regards to the return on investment. But I do think it's important to look at the return on investment. And I forgot to ask the life expectancy of that equipment that they're talking about putting in, because they had a return on investment of 3, 4, and 5 years. And I would think that the items that they were referring to have a life expectancy of greater than 5 years.
Right. They do.
I would certainly think that, but I want to make certain that's the case. And then
we did similar projects. We phased it in over several years instead of doing it all at one time.
And I think that was
I guess the only one that Mr. White is that we'll need to be cognizant of because some of those they're becoming obsolete, so it may have to be an accelerated phase-in.
well, and that's fine. And it may not work out in practicality, but in my mind, I was just thinking through it is, do we may have more efficient use of our funds by, instead of doing 100%, by doing it? It may not come out that way because the product or the dishwasher is worn out,
right,
and we got to replace it. That's a different answer. That's a different statement than we get some efficiencies by doing this.
Well, and I'm a little concerned if they're phasing out, I can't recall what the term was at TS.
The T5s, the T12s, and the T8s.
Phasing out T12s.
If they're phasing that out, then I would be very reluctant to purchase that.
They're not
No, they're going from T12 to
Going
T8s.
to
Oh, they're okay.
Because the T12s, the federal government has said you can't even
right.
produce those anymore except for certain type facilities.
So they're not phasing out
They were
T8.
supposed to have been done
No,
away
they're
with
trying to
10
go to
years ago.
T8.
Okay.
They quit
But-
making them in this country, and China started making them, shipping them over here by the thousands.
Yep.
And so,
Okay.
but most of them's going to T8. They're not using T8. Most of them no more. They're going to T5.
The assistant ADs, I'm not inclined to fund that, and also band equipment. I'm not inclined to fund that. If you're looking at $80,000, that is that's about 3 to 4 TAs. I figured up so I just don't, I think I'm trying to figure out how we get more money into the classroom to get more knowledge out of the classroom. And I think art and music is important, but I think live body is equally important, or more important.
Well, I don't see how they do away with all the teachers' assistants.
And I've had a lot of parents tell me, Commissioner Meismer, that their band equipment is rented.
Right.
And they go to wherever the rental place is and rent the tuba and rent
Right. The individual pays.
Right.
Sure. Right, I agree.
So those are my top list.
It's not free
Well, some of the
education.
tubas, they go and buy a mouthpiece,
Well,
and they use the school tuba.
Right.
They only have to, you're not going to buy marimbas and timpanis and marching bass drums and tubas and those, you're not going to.
if I knew what those were, I may buy them.
The only reason I would buy a tuba is if my child was so good that he or she was getting a full ride at college because they were playing a unique instrument, which happens often.
What's the cost of a new tuba?
Tuba?
Thousands.
50,000, what'd you say?
I just
No,
said
not
thousands.
50.
Oh, it's.
It's not something the average family can
15,
afford.
20,000? I wouldn't doubt that it's that much, but I don't know. A lot of high schools, the band boosters, raise a lot of money and buy instruments, and uniforms, and a lot of things. But, don't disagree. Chris, you had something else you wanted to mention?
The Special Olympics, the request, I know that was mentioned, so it'd be interesting to follow up on that. And then the other thing I was looking at was the $4 million for,
Technology.
yeah, technology. And, you know, that's, I don't know if there's a way to phase that in, but $4 million off the bat is.
Well, that's purchasing. Right now, they're doing
Right.
leases.
Well, if they lease it, it's gonna be less.
Right, you know.
They're spending $1 million a year right now on computer leases, right?
On
Yeah.
4 separate leases, yes.
And then at the end of the, when they pay for the computer, or when they get done with the lease term, do they own the computer? Is it lease to own?
I have the leases, I'll have to go back and look.
Because I'm thinking it's lease to own.
It is.
I mean, granted, you mentioned that, 5-year-old
Yeah,
computer.
Worth a whole lot.
The operating
Throw 'em
system
away.
is just as important, but, you know, I think they are leased to own, but I'm not 100% sure.
If I could-
Anything else?
If I could point one thing out, on Mr. Meester was discussing the utility cost increase. Cabarrus County Schools has asked for $6.8 million increase in their ADM current expense funding. And that is to cover the request they made for all of their local continuation items and their expansion items. So if you were to fund the 938 students that, for us, there's a difference between April to April, that's $1.4 million. Their request for continuation is only 1.2, and you would cover the salary increase of 1%, the 1.5% COLA, the utility cost, the employer's retirement, hospitalization, and unemployment cost. So when you do that one time, when you do that money to cover those additional students, that covers all those requests and then about 200,000 more. So it's not like it's a double request.
Well, but those 965 students includes Kannapolis too.
No, I pulled out the Kannapolis students. 938 were on, it's
Oh, I'm sorry.
965 total, 938 is Cabarrus.
But that was assuming none of it would have to go to the charter schools.
Right.
So if you fund them and then they have to go to the charter schools.
Then that money just passes on along.
The comment Ms. Klutz made was, if you fund all my new growth, I will not have a problem. I'm just referring to funding her new growth.
Plus continuation.
And then it will dip a little bit into it'll cover a continuation, and there'll be a little excess to go into the next tier.
Yeah, and again, I just want to make sure you understand. Your flexibility in the proposed budget right now is in that contingency. A lot of these things you're talking about are pretty big ticket items. You're going to have more flexibility in one-time cost projects than you will with the recurring costs, unless you start going up and making some adjustments. And again, we've not really discussed all those other than last night. So I just want to.
Chris, anything else? Larry, do you have any other clarifications you need? Steve, you got anything else you want to go over?
I don't think so.
Okay, I want to, if you will put it on our page 48, I just want to point this one out, because if I don't, I'm sorry, not 48, my bad, 50. Our page 50, their page 19.
Is this it?
School system. Nope.
Technology facilitators? Is that
It
right?
says state funding,
Okay.
expansion item, state funding.
Yeah.
Keep going, there. Okay, I just want to point out on this page that it says state funding, and item number 1 is return technology facilitators to 11-month positions. Technology facilitators in the school system, in my opinion, should be 11-month funded, and they should be funded by the state. They are currently funded by the state. They deserve to be there for 11 months. They're needed for 11 months. They re-image every single one of those computers over the summer. And it's the technology facilitator's responsibility to re-image every teacher computer, every lab, which in my school, there's 7 labs, 5, 6, 8 labs. 8 labs of over 20 in a lab, plus, and you have to do that individually. You get it started and it starts running, because that's how the system's set up. So I just want to say, it needs to be out of state funding, not out of our funding. I hope the state will see that they should return technology facilitators back, because otherwise they're working for free in the summer because they have to get it done. I mean, that's just the reality of it. They got cut and they're still coming in and working, so. And the other comment that I would make is that I think that we should seriously look at funding the growth number, whatever number that turns out to be, and make adjustments as we need to. If we expect them, if at whatever point in time we set that 1,500 and change number as the amount we were going to contribute to fund every student, then we need to understand that as the systems grow, we should expect that we're going to fund that and not expect them to continually teach more and more students with less and less dollars. And whether I agree with you on those continuation items to keep them where they are, though that number, that number that you mentioned has the 2.5% in it, not 1% in it. So.
Correct, I realize that.
Yeah.
But if you take that into consideration also,
You don't need the money you set aside in your contingency for the 1% and the 1.5 because it's already in the 1.2.
Right, so I think.
Even though it's too high.
There you go. We need to look at that. That would be my recommendation, and I agree with Commissioner White on his comments on all those line items on whether or not they should be individually funded. I still have some confusion on a personal level on when we fund. I know that they can move money here, there, move it around. So I think that we need to make certain that they understand that these are the items that we think are important and that we're choosing to fund, and that's where we expect the money to be spent. Whether it's technology, which we've set that aside now, but however ways, that we feel like. 'Cause I don't know about you, but I have a number of messages at home every week letting me know what other people think we should fund. So that's my only comments on it. And I appreciate the fact that you've worked very hard to clear up the school nurse. So I want to thank you for that, because I know that's been a headache, but I think it's the right thing for us to do, is to clear that up and make sure those folks are taken care of. So, any other questions, comments?
Motion to recess till tomorrow, 4 o'clock.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are now recessed. Thank you.